Hi, everyone. Good morning, good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar on composable commerce. We're very excited to share insights with you on how to launch a complete and legacy compatible storefront and to demonstrate the recently released Lanza Composable Commerce. I'm joined today by Steve and Patrick from Lanza Professional Services. I'm just going to give everyone a quick minute to get settled. We're also, by the way, streaming live on LinkedIn. So for those joining us there, welcome. We'll keep an eye on the comments. So feel free to drop any questions you have anytime as we move through today's session. So I see a lot of you has joined. So I'm just going to turn over the microphone to Steve. Steve, please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. So hopefully this is a topic that means a lot to a lot of people out there. There's no question that e-commerce, even though it's been around for 30 years, and although we still see some organizations that really only have an online catalog, most organizations are on their second or third or even further along with evolutions of e-commerce. Few buyers want an in-store experience these days, of course. It's become the exception. So keeping up with e-commerce expectations is a really big challenge. I think in all of the areas where IT has evolved quickly, you could argue it's e-commerce, maybe only recently usurped by AI, of course. But e-commerce is really moving very, very quickly, and it's difficult to keep up. So we'd like to help sort of set the scene for how that can be done. So definitely we need some kind of a modern e-commerce solution that's quick to launch, makes all of the users happy, keeps them empowered, low cost to maintain, and flexible enough to evolve. So I was at TD Bank recently paying off a mortgage, and I worked with their IT department in the early 90s. You wouldn't really know it from their website, which is great, but in going in there in person, there were some aspects of things that they were still using quite an old platform and an old application. So I guess what I realized is they're smart enough to realize that the investment of having e-commerce solutions has been more their focus, while they still realize that those core financial systems are too valuable to just throw away or rewrite. There's so much information that has been hard-earned built up in those systems in terms of the business data, and in terms of the business logic that's there as well. So they've taken what I think is a smarter approach, which is to build an e-commerce solution that embraces the entire ecosystem. So in order to do that, in a modern approach, you have to be able to expose the capabilities or some of the capabilities in your ERP and other core systems via APIs, and then connect those, taking advantage of REST with all of the different front-end modules that are available. Again, you don't really have to keep up with a single monolithic e-commerce solution these days. You can take advantage of all of the different cloud services that are out there and compose your solution, hence the name Composable Commerce. So this is an example of a composable commerce ecosystem. It's basically the ecosystem that our offering, our Lanza Composable Commerce, fits into. You can see there's lots of different ERP options, some of the big names that are out there, as well as homegrown or systems that have initially started with some kind of a vendor offering, but you've made so many customizations to it that it really isn't maintained by the vendor anymore, and it's typically almost the same as homegrown these days. You might have a content management system that pulls from various areas. So those are some of the common ones that we deal with. For search, whether it's searching for items, searching for documents, searching for attributes of items, whatever it is, there's a lot of really good tools out there that make search happen very quickly. Whereas, days gone by, you'd have to write all of those things yourself. And similarly with insights, Google pretty well dominates the web landscape, and Google Analytics is a really, really good, powerful tool to analyze things. But there's other good tools as well. Clarity is quite good for showing patterns of traffic and heat maps and things like that. Yellowfin and Lanza BI are nice BI products that help you take out not only the traffic data from your system, but really the core business data. Who's looking at what? Why are they looking at it? What are they buying, etc. A lot of the data can be pulled together. So this is just one sample architecture, just to give you an idea that the front end can be made up of, in this case, an Azure cloud server, maybe Docker for container service, Nginx for a web server, React and Next.js for the user experience. And the back end, in this case, let's say it's a Windows server running IIS. You've got some Lanza APIs, other APIs. You've got SAP as your core ERP running over an SQL database. And the plugins for content management and search and analytics and business intelligence could be as shown there. So you can see that there's a lot of APIs and there's a lot of communications going around in this kind of a composable solution. But the beauty is that you can pluck one out, replace it, and you don't really lose much ground, and you gain whatever is the latest thing. So here's another example. Maybe you have, in this case, an AWS front end with an Apache web server, and maybe you've got an IBM I on-premise with Apache, and you've got a homegrown ERP instead of something from a vendor. And again, you could have completely different plugins. So the architectures are available these days to do this kind of thing. And what you're really doing in this situation is you're taking advantage of the things that are available in your ERP, but you don't have to try to develop the entire e-commerce solution all by yourself using one technology. That's an approach we would have taken, 10, 15 years ago. It's not really the approach that's popular today. So when you think about what you get from this, as I mentioned, you get to avoid that sort of vendor lock-in. Obviously, as an e-commerce provider like Lanza is, sure, we'd love it if every single thing in your environment was Lanza, but it's just not realistic. There's always going to be different ERPs out there, different content management systems. There's going to be plugins of all kinds. You're going to be dealing with your partners and their technology stacks. So the idea of this kind of composable commerce is that you can still have a single seamless customer user experience, but it can be drawing information and documents and images from so many different places. And that's okay. In fact, that's probably more ideal. And at the end of the day, you're trying to provide that, that classic omni-channel experience where a customer can deal with you sort of in a marketing stage. They can transact with you once they have accounts, and they can look at all of their information and place orders and pay invoices and all of those kinds of things. And they can also go to a showroom and purchase the same products configured the same way online. And it doesn't really matter where you go. You get the same kind of experience throughout the whole thing. So the idea is that you can plug and play with lots of different features of different applications, different offerings that are out there on the web.